Hello and welcome to the Notes and Solutions for day 16 of our GCSE 5 a day. We start with a question on column multiplication. Now the key skills that I want you to focus on when you do this are to make sure that your columns are very neatly lined up and that you leave plenty of space between your columns. So it's very clear which is which, and we work from right to left. So we're going to start here. 9 times 3, which is 27. So that's a 7 in the ones column, and my 2 moves over here into the tens column. 9 times 1 is 9, and I've got 2 more here, so that's 11. So 1 in my tens column and 1 more in my hundreds column. So my answer there is 117. If you want to go and practice some more of those on century, then nugget 3.07 is the one to go for. Now you might be a little bit surprised that I've left a calculator on the screen here, but I want you to get into the routine of using your calculator to check non-calculator work such as this. Don't use it to replace it, use it to check, and that's a good discipline. If you're doing work on a century nugget, instead of getting the answer incorrect, check on your calculator before you press the submit button, and if it's wrong, go back and see if you can find your error. Okay, now questions 2, 3 and 4 are all covering this topic: fractions, decimals, percentages. And this is one of our key topics to make sure that we have mastered. So what we're being asked here is to write this decimal. So we're going from a decimal to a percentage. Now, in order to understand what's going on here, we need to understand our decimal place value. We need to understand that this is the ones column, this is the tenths column, this is the hundredths column, and this is the thousandths column. And if this is an area that you're still struggling with, that if asked by a teacher, you couldn't say what these columns are, then please ask your teacher for specific help on decimal place value. So what we know is that our percentages are actually fractions out of 100. So this means that this column is the percentage column. So 1%, 100th. So that is 1%. So when we are given this decimal here, 0.7, we need to be thinking about what's this number, with our basing ourselves in the percent column. Well, let's fill in the extra 0 here. And we can see that relative to this column here, we've got none in the 1% column, but we've got 10 in the next column bigger. So this, in fact, is 70%. As I say, we've got questions 2, 3 and 4 here, and you'll see that the nuggets to practice have very similar numbers. A direct practice here is nugget 8.04. So we have another question linked to our wider topic of fractions, decimals and percentages. And our first point to remember is that percentages are fractions, but they're just measured out of 100. They have a denominator of 100. So this is really an equivalent fractions exercise. where we're having to work out what the numerator is of this fraction to be equal to 3/5. So our key to working with equivalent fractions is to take the same action on the top and the bottom. And what we can see here is how have we got from 5 to 100? Well, we've multiplied by 20. What do we need to multiply 5 by to get 100? That's a division calculation. 100 divided by 5 equals 20. So that's where that number is coming from. We have to do the same to the top. 3 times 20 is 60. So our answer is 60 out of 100. 60% is how we want that. You may wonder why I've left the calculator up here. That's just as a reminder that if we end up with any fraction, then all we have to do is to press equals, and our FD or SD button switches between fractions and decimals. And if we know what the decimal is, then as we saw in question 2 earlier, we can convert that quickly to percentages. So remember that your calculator can be a real help when doing this type of question. And some questions just the same to practice on Century, Nugget 8.03. Okay, question 4. This is our third question in a row on this general topic of fractions, decimals and percentages. And here we are going from percentages to decimals. As I explained in question 2, our key step here is being able to understand what these decimal place columns mean. Our ones column, our tenths column, our hundredths column, and our thousandths column. And if you're struggling to be able to name these and understand these columns correctly, then that's something to please discuss with your teacher straight away. Now, our first understanding needs to be that percentages are fractions out of 100, which means that our hundredths column here is also the 1% column. So if I have 5%, then that would be 5 in my column here. If I'm trying to fit 35 into this column, then that 30 is 10 times bigger. So my 3 will be in the next column along. We can fit in a placeholder here. So our decimal value is 0.35. Now I've left the calculator up here again, just to remind you that your calculator can be an enormous help here. We've got a percent button here, shift, bracket, and all I need to do is to press the equals sign, and there I have my percentage as a fraction. Remember, we can switch between fractions and decimals, and there we have my answer. So your calculator can be used as a really good checking tool when you're doing non-calculator work. And the nugget to go away and do some more of these on Century is 8.05, and you'll see that's a very similar number to the ones that I gave you for question 3 and question 2. And we've really got a whole topic area here going between nugget 8.01 and 8.13. And it's really worth practicing all of those nuggets on Century if you're a little bit unsure. Okay, we've got quite a clever little question here, and I'm just going to use a bar model to illustrate what's going on. So those are my x's there, and my y's. Again, we don't know what these numbers are, but you'll see that all my y's are the same size, and all my x's are the same size. And what we're told is that these 2x and 4y together make 18. And what we're being asked in the question is what is 1x and 2y. And what I hope you can see once we see this as a picture is that what we're being asked for here is half of what we've got there. So instead of 2x's, I've got 1x, half of 2 is 1, and instead of 4y's, I've got 2. So what these must add up to is half of 18, which is 9. Now, I haven't got a nugget that's directly doing that sort of work, but the underlying skill of scaling up and down algebraic equations is something that we use when we're solving simultaneous equations. So I think a nugget that you might want to go and look at is 19.22 and see if some of the work there is something that you can tackle. Okay, that's the end of our notes and solutions for day 16. I hope you're finding your 5 a day useful and keep up the good work.